So today we can start with the question of who is experiencing now. So outside there's the sound of some people talking, there's the sound of the dogs barking and birds, and there's the sound of me speaking in here. There's also visuals, so there's the sight of me, there's the sight of the wall, there's the sight of the camera, of the speaker box, of the cushions, of the colour. And who's experienced all of that? Right here, right now, in this moment, who experiences? So, if you've been into this subject a lot, then you might have some ideas about that and be able to answer me. If you're new to it, that might sound really confusing. You'll think, well, I'm sitting here listening to you. My body is experiencing me. This me here. But let's look at what this assumption of you is and who is actually here listening now. Because if this is seen, there is something really beautiful that can be revealed. And it's not something I can actually teach you. It's when you look past what you think you know. So you might notice that a lot of speakers or scriptures talk about not knowing or mystery, or going beyond the intellect, or going beyond duality. And duality is the opposites in thinking: right, wrong, good, bad, high, low, left, right, you, me, sister, brother, mother, father. So it's going beyond those opposites. So who experiences right now? So your mind might tell you that there is a you that's experiencing, but who is this you in this moment? So we can talk about you, Killer Country. That woke everybody up if you felt like sleeping through this talk. That's what happened. So you might think that you that arrived from time. So you are somebody that came into this room and listening to this talk. You're somebody that was born in a particular country. You're somebody that likes monkeys or doesn't like monkeys. You're somebody that's sitting listening to that sound. But if you pay attention to that experience, even if you're somebody that's sitting listening to that sound, that's already going into imagination. That's already going into what you know. You have an image in your head of your body sat here, maybe not even from the outside, maybe from the inside, but you have this sense of your body, and then you have a sense of you looking in this room or sitting in this room in relationship to the ceiling, but it's all imagination. It's not the reality of what happens. It's your mind dividing everything off. So often throughout the day, you have an image of yourself arising, like you have an image of what you want people to see. So maybe you have an Instagram account and you have an image of what you want people to perceive of you, how you want to be perceived in the photo, or how the story, the narrative of what you want to tell about you. But there's always this mental image of yourself. It's not actually your body that you see. You're not looking in the mirror at that moment when you're thinking about it. It's in your mind that you're seeing this. And you have an image of the way you look, and you have like this sense, this feeling of yourself, which you sort of project to being here below your head. And there is this you that's doing all these things. But that's not your direct experience. That's already something that you've learnt, and something that your brain is doing. There's something beyond that's your direct experience, that's happening directly in this moment. There's a reason why Buddhists talk about being in the moment, and why everything is about pointing to the celebration of this, something here. It's because there's a truth that can be revealed to you that's beyond you, that's beyond what you know, that's something fundamental to your being. So even if you're sitting there, you might have a feeling of yourself of being a good student or a bad student, or understanding or not understanding. That's all going into a timeline. That's all something that you know about yourself. That you're good in comparison to somebody that's not good. That you're bad in comparison to somebody that's good. that you're short, that you're white, that you're happy, that you're sad, that you're depressed. All of this goes into time. It's not the direct experience. The direct experience, you could say, is only a doing word. It's hearing, it's seeing, it's feeling, it's direct. All of that isn't in the moment. All of that is based on past experiences and comparison and thinking. And it's a divided mind. It's so intelligent that it's very hard to see. In a way, it's impossible to see that. But there can be a pointing to something that's beyond that, that's not divided, that doesn't go into time. So the reason that I'm trying to point it out is so you can identify what's not true. And then you can remember something that is true. So just be open to this idea that you as a person aren't actually sitting here listening. That you don't actually fundamentally exist as a person. That the person, so who you think yourself to be, has been a narrative that's been playing, and it is always changing, dependent on your environment, dependent on the people you're with, dependent on what knowledge you have, dependent on your age, dependent on your health, dependent on your emotional body. There isn't actually a fixed you inside your body. So what is fixed and what is always permanent in experiencing? And this is where it gets super exciting. Like there is something beyond you here. So what is that? So now I've, for the last 5 minutes, been pointing to what you're not. Now let's move to me trying to point to what you are. So when you wake up in the morning, there is something that is there that is automatic. And it's actually there in deep sleep, but we'll address that at another time. When you wake up in the morning, there is an awakeness that happens. You could say a consciousness. So when I say consciousness, I'm talking about the consciousness that is there when you go to the doctor and they knock you out. You lose consciousness. I'm talking about that consciousness, that when you wake up, there is this consciousness, awakeness, there is a presence that arises. I'm not talking about the consciousness of you being conscious of your dynamics, conscious of your thoughts. That's already in the brain. That's something that happens in the brain. There is something prior to that. There is a consciousness that happens instantly when you wake up. You don't turn it on. You appear in it. It might feel like you turn on the consciousness, that you are consciousness, but actually it happens prior to you. And it's there all the time, even in deep sleep. It's just that in deep sleep there's nothing to be conscious of, so there's nothing actually happening. That consciousness is prior to the body. So this isn't just something I'm saying. This is something that's in lots of spiritual traditions. It's something that lots of gurus, masters and philosophers talk about, and it's something now that they talk about in quantum physics and in science, that consciousness does the body. Consciousness is actually in all things, but it seemingly looks from an angle. So consciousness is actually the appearance of everything, and it doesn't belong to you. The body appears in consciousness. This is a totally different way of experiencing to this belief system that says you as a body and you as a personality structure are conscious. The reason that this is really important to remember is because when consciousness belongs to you and the body, your energetic experience is that you're locked inside the body, that you're born and that you die, and that the most important thing is keeping you as a body and as your ego structure alive. And it's also become super important to satisfy that person, because that person is so important. Seeing this, knowing this beyond the person, reminds you, or there is a deep knowing when this is seen, that this isn't actually a divided reality, and there isn't actually somebody that's born and dies. There are appearances that are transforming from one form to another form to another form, but actually somebody doesn't die, and this actually then in turn changes the person. The person doesn't wake up because the person can't. The person doesn't get enlightened because the person can't. But it changes that person. It fundamentally changes the experience, because before, everything was you looking at the world, you in relationship to the world. And then when this energy shift happens, or this seeing happens, there is a different experience. Suddenly it's everything looking, it's consciousness looking, which is in all things. It's not you looking. So that means everything you experience, everything that happens to you, is you. There is no victim in which life is happening to. There is no separate entity which life is happening to. Everything is an appearance of you as consciousness. And then in that, the personality structure arises and says, I like this, I don't like this. When there is this identification with the personality structure always feels incomplete and is always seeking to find itself in the material world, which is an endless endeavor. It will never find consciousness, what it truly looks for, home in the future. What you truly look for in life, and why life can seem unsatisfactory, is this moment, is what you always have. Because you might have noticed, you always have this moment. You always have it. It's always here. You don't ever lose this. You can't lose it. You can't ever lose this moment, and you can never have individual moments that make up your life. There is one moment with lots of things going and changing. It's the case. You're always in one moment, one life, which is you, which is who you truly are. And your brain is dividing up into what we call duality, separation. And it's saying, I'm moving in to a different space and time. I'm moving into a different moment. I'm moving into a different timeline. I'm moving into the future, where you don't move into the future and you don't escape the past. You're always present. And this is kind of obvious. Like, when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, it's always now. This is what Eckhart Tolle is speaking about, the present power of now. It is always the now. You don't ever get to the future, and you don't ever leave the past. You're always in now, 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 now. And it's not separate now. It's one never-ending now. And this is you. This is you. That's quite life-changing for the person. That's really, on the personal level, that's quite a shift. Because the person is built up on the idea, I am separate, I am creating my reality, I'm in control of my life, I'm in relationship to the world, and they are other things from me. And they can either give me what I want, or they can take from me. But I end here. Whereas what is your experience now? So this is really amazing if you're open to it. So let's listen to these people outside speaking. So just listen to it. So if you just shut your eyes and you listen to them speaking, or listen to the birds for a moment. Hearing is always the easiest one, I think, to do this with. So you've always thought that you hear inside your body, and there is sound that's external to you, you're hearing. But can you find in this moment, not in what you know, not in what you think, in this moment, the end of your hearing and the beginning of sound? Where do you end and that sound begin? And you might begin to discover that hearing and sound are the same thing. Seeing and the seen are the same thing. That feeling and the felt are the same thing. There has never been this divide. There's been a divide of your mind. Everything appears inside your consciousness. Everything is your consciousness. So just take that statement, everything's appearing in your consciousness. So you're conscious of these sounds, you're conscious of this room. It's not appearing outside of your consciousness. It's appearing inside. But it's your mind that says it's appearing inside my consciousness, but it's still separate from me. But if you are consciousness, then nothing ever appears outside of you. Everything is made up of who you truly are. And this is oneness teaching. This is what everybody is trying to teach, I think, in spirituality, even Christians, Muslims, Sufis, Jainism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of it. This is spectacular. When this is seen, it's one of those holy cow moments. Like, it's love, seeing that everything was you all the time. And it's also a freedom as well. That everywhere you go, everything you do is what you've been looking for, is yourself, is the home you seek. And you never have to get it in time. You never have to arrive at a point. It's a completely different way of living. This is it. This is everything you want, which is really simple because you always have this. You never have something else. You always have this. So it means that you were born with it. It was a birthright. And it means that you don't have to buy it. You don't have to bargain for it. You don't have to trade something for it. It's here. The reason that doesn't feel like a celebration, so I don't see a lot of people like, woohoo! Or maybe you are internally. You're like, wow, yeah, we've got this now. This is miraculous. The reason that doesn't feel like a celebration, or maybe it does, I'm projecting, is because of this dynamic called seeking. And what seeking is when you divide, when your mind begins to divide, your mind begins to get into this dynamic of believing that the future will give you better things and a better experience. This begins to happen at a very young age. And at first you were complete and whole, like as a child you were so excited to be alive, and there was so little you knew and had. You knew very little about yourself, very little about the world, very little about what you wanted or didn't want or had or didn't have or were going to be or not be, and yet there was this innocence, this excitement, the world was wondrous. But then as you separated, as you began to learn more about who you were, and you began to like suck in more things for you, I'm a good child, I'm a happy child, I'm a bad child, I've got to get things in the future, I've got to be a doctor, I've got to be better than my classmates, I've got to be good looking, I've got to do my hair in a certain way. As you've sucked in more things to yourself, you began to feel heavier, more limited. As a child you were limitless, and then limitation onto your experience began. And when you felt limited, it felt uncomfortable. So what you began to do was daydream that in the future you will feel better. In the future you'll arrive at a point where you will get something that will complete you. And that very dynamic created more discomfort because you kept on trying to get things, you kept on telling yourself you're incomplete, that you're limited, that there's something wrong, and you kept building this momentum seeking and producing stress in the body, seeking, seeking, seeking. And over time, your experience became more and more limited. Who you were became more limited, and you became more contained in something. And then that encouraged seeking. And that developed something that some teachers would call the ego, but I don't really call it, or the pain body. I'd just call it the seeking energy. And it encourages this feeling of separation, of deadness, of feeling incomplete. So that's why when I talk about how wonderful this moment is, you're not sitting there and being like, woohoo, this is it, baby. You're like, oh, really? I get this. Oh. Because your body is not feeling so comfortable, because there's been years and years of this momentum of I am not enough. This is not enough. There must be something better. I need more money. I need more looks. I need more children. I need more love. I need a better husband. I need a better wife. I need a better this and a better that, a better blah, 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 blah. And that, all of that is giving you a sense of lack. So this then goes into a process in time of this person exploring these ideas and these attachments and the belief systems that you have. And I'm really happy to speak with you on two different levels. We speak about the belief system and the person, and then we speak about the absolute non-duality. And they're two different things, but in order to hear non-duality, you normally have to de-pick some of the personal conditioning and personal ideas in order to clear the way. When you're deeply suffering and contracted, it's so hard to hear the celebration of this moment. Like hearing that is impossible. When you're deeply suffering, your body is closed and you can't hear, like somebody that's going on about how wonderful this is. You're like, I don't like that person very much. What a show off. Like you don't appreciate it. So there has to be a de-picking, but that is different from speaking about the absolute. The absolute doesn't belong to someone and doesn't require the person to change at all. The absolute is happy with the person suffering. It's not in conflict with that. The absolute's nature is to love everything, including a separate person that suffers. So these are two different levels, but it might feel like I'm talking about the same thing. It might feel like you are waking up, but actually you begin to see that nobody can ever wake up, that your nature is awakeness, your nature is Buddha nature. But that might take time to become clear, because the mind likes to make things very complicated. This subject's very simple actually, but the mind projects lots of complicated things onto it, and it sort of makes it a dense cloud of thought. So this is why I invite people to ask questions, so I can understand the position that you're coming from or what thoughts you're having about what's being said. And it helps everybody else if you ask questions, because then they might be being stuck on the same thing or getting tripped up by the same idea. And you can ask about personal problems, and you can ask about the absolute. And I'm happy to address both. Either one.